Verse 6, it says, and if by grace, if this calling, if this choosing of God is by his grace, then it is no longer of works. Otherwise, grace is no longer grace. But if it is of works, it is no longer grace. Otherwise, work is no longer work. This is the last scripture we'll do tonight. But we've got to focus on it because this verse is so neglected. And I love verse 6. Okay, I know it's like a dictionary verse. It really is like a section of the dictionary. Here's what grace means, here's what works means, here's what it doesn't mean, and here's what the other one doesn't mean. So it's defining terms. It's beautiful, and it's super important, and it's totally neglected. And I would beg every Jehovah's Witness, every Mormon, every Catholic, and anybody else who believes in grace plus works to study verse 6 of Romans 11. Because it completely destroys those theologies. They're not possible. Let me explain. It says here that grace is no longer of works, and works is no longer of grace. Because if you're going to pretend that if it is of works, it's not of grace. If you're going to pretend that it's of grace, then it's not of works. This is what's called a dichotomy, a separation of two options. There's only two choices here. You are saved by grace or you are saved by works. What everyone tries to do, what all false gospels try to do, is they try to combine the two into some mixture. So that when we encounter Jehovah's Witness and you say, well, I believe we're saved by grace, and they go, we agree. And you go, wait a minute. I don't think, and you talk to the Mormon, I believe we're saved by grace, and they go, absolutely, we agree. And you go, but wait a minute, that's not quick. And you talk to the Catholic, I believe we're totally saved by grace, and you go, but wait a minute, like you can't say that. Because if you say grace, you mean not works. And they go, well, I'm not saying not works. I'm saying grace, and works. But the Bible here is saying you can't not say that. That's not allowed. That's against the rules, okay? You can't add grace plus works. You can't have Taco Bell and Mexican food, okay? It's one or the other. It's not both. So one is not the other. So here's a way to summarize this as you're sharing with people, and you get into that confusing moment where you're like, wait a minute, you can't say that. Is you can show them Romans 11:6 and then say, but if it's by grace, then it's no longer of works. And if it's by works, it's no longer of grace. These things don't compute. You can't combine them. So I hear it put this way: is everyone believes in the necessity of grace. All false gospels will teach that you need some version of grace. That grace is needed, it's necessary, but they don't believe in the sufficiency of grace. Or in other words, they don't believe grace is enough. Just grace, not enough. You got to do stuff too. And then I would say, well, if you have just grace and doing stuff, that's not grace. Because they view grace, get this, as a discount on salvation, not free salvation. Grace is viewed like it's a coupon. Like, oh, Jesus, I'm going to bring all my works. Like, I got all my change, but then I got the coupon, so I have enough to buy salvation. That's ultimately what we're saying. But grace is simply free. It's utterly free gift of God. I do not offer anything. So grace equals not works. Works equals not grace. It's a true dichotomy. You got to pick one or the other. The Bible is defining its terms here, and you can't argue with this and be biblical. It's like the Bible's going, just so you know, future false gospels, let me define what I mean when I say grace. Saved by grace, it means not works. That's good stuff. Good stuff. Grace is not a discount on salvation. It means salvation is utterly free.